Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers beat the Boston Bruins 3-2 in another comeback victory. And it was very similar to the game against the Vegas Golden Knights, where they were trailing by that same 2-1 score. And not only win the game, but win it in regulation, which was especially important against Boston, who is one of the many teams the Rangers are competing against for one of those final playoff spots. And, the Rangers had lost to Boston over the weekend in a game where they did not play very well. That was JT Miller's first game back with the Rangers. Um, in this game, I would say the Rangers were the better team. Now, had a little bit of an advantage going in the fact that Boston was coming in off of a back-to-back where they shut out Minnesota the night before at home. Now, I think they said the Bruins' record in the second game of back-to-backs is 5-0-1. So they've had success in those situations. But the Bruins in general are much better. Their record is much better at home than it is on the road. So that's a pretty big deal. But just the fact that the Rangers were able to stick with it is a good sign moving forward. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but 2 more games before the break. And for the Rangers to find a way against Vegas and now in this game against Boston is really what they need. This is a really big game. I mean, I understand you still have, now 29 games left, but if they were to have, lost that game, let's say in regulation, as it is, the Rangers are in catch-up mode. So they really needed it. And Chris Kreider is the one that gets the game-winning goal, a shorthanded goal, actually. So the special teams gets it done in the third period where the second unit, it wasn't a power play goal, but it was a couple seconds after. It may as well have been, even if it doesn't go down that way, after a penalty by Brad Marchand, which we'll discuss. But so that was similar to the Vegas game, right? Where that game was an actual power play goal early in the third. This one, same sort of thing. They tie it up, and then later on in the third period, the Rangers find a way, and this time it's shorthanded. So special teams comes through in the third. But this was a game that, if the Rangers had lost, would have been very, disappointing. The Bruins scored 2 goals in I think a 16-second span late in the second period to give them the 2-1 lead. But it's just interesting. The Rangers, for so long, didn't have a win when trailing after 2 periods. Now that's 2 games in a row, and they had one not too long before that against Utah. So now it's 3 within the last, whatever it's been, 2-3 weeks. And that's important. And they still haven't won a game when trailing by 2 or more goals. That's the next thing that they need to tackle. And hopefully they're not in those situations. Hopefully they're in, either leading or only trailing by 1. But again, that's something they haven't done. But that's for another episode. But mostly positive things. I think the Rangers, in terms of their ability to score goals, it's been tricky. But like I've been saying, in order for the Rangers to get back into this, it's going to have to be defense predicated. They're not really going to be successful in these track meet games where there's high scoring. If you see the final score is more low scoring, I think that's a good sign, and the Rangers can win those types of games. And Igor was good, made some big saves when he had to in the third, wasn't tested a crazy amount. The goals that he allowed really honestly weren't anything egregious. For me, it was more so, hey, like going in the third period, Igor had to lock down, and he did. Like there were some tough tests. There was one play that was pretty crazy where I think it was Pasternak that flipped it in, and it goes behind the net off the boards and takes a weird sort of carom back towards the net, goes like under Shesterkin and Mason Lohrei coming in, got a really good opportunity, and it goes off of Igor's shoulder and just trickles wide. Like that was a scary moment with, I think, probably about 2 to 3 minutes left in the game. But he was able to get it done, as as tough as that looked in the moment. But Rangers take 2 of 3 from Boston as well this year, and these were 3 games that were played again within about a month span. Obviously the last game was 2 games in less than a week, but 2 of those games were at home, and that's advantageous considering we know the fact that the Bruins are very home dependent as far as their wins. But yeah, like the tenor of this episode could have been very different. That's the thing. I mean, even last episode too. But it's been good to see. I think Mika Zibanejad is another positive theme, and I don't know that he's all the way there. I mean, there's still moments during a game that bad turnover. Like, I don't even know if I call it turnovers, but it's like losing of possession where the Rangers have a chance to maybe do something with it and he loses the puck. Um, and it may set up a decent chance for Boston, but by and large, I think he's been just a lot better in 2025. And the results are starting to come with it. So he gets 2 assists in this game. He has 6 points in his last 3 games. Like, and honestly, you can just see that he's more confident. He's smiling more. Like, you can sense that he's feeling better about his game, which is and you can't say enough about how important it is to get Zibanejad going. Because really, I think that you can make the argument that with the 3 centers down the middle, and even 4, including Carrick, with Zibanejad being one of them, instead of Brodzinski as a third line center, could be really good for the Rangers. But him on this first line right wing, um, that line with JT Miller and Panarin is extremely dangerous. And so I think it's going to be, something they're going to stick with for a while now. But Mika is a positive. It was good to see Vincent Trocheck get a goal. He's someone that I think there's more there. And for him to get that tying goal was really big. And then, of course, Kreider, him getting that game-winning shorthanded goal, it's frustrating with him because he turned on the Jets. In other words, he is capable of giving you these moments. But during most of the game, especially in the defensive zone, he's just standing there. And he's not winning board battles. Like, eye test wise, it's a really, really rough watch as far as Kreider goes. But then you see he can do this. So then it makes me think, all right, so he can do it. He's not incapable, right? It's not as if, like he's just getting old and he just can't move. He can. He needs to be able to do that consistently. And Peter Laviolette depends on him a lot. I mean, for me, the fact that he was in there to close out the game, I understand he's one of your more relied upon defensive forwards. I get that. I do. But it was, I mean, and maybe because, there were icings and they were kind of caught in their own zone for a while, but it was Kreider, Trocheck, and Riley Smith. Those were the 3 and with Lindgren and Fox. And so I feel as if, Kreider, I don't know that it's deserved. And I've said that I think he is a guy that can help you on special teams. But for me, I mean, even in that situation, I guess a 5-on-6 essentially, which is kind of shorthanded. It is, but it's different, honestly. Kreider's going to be important, as is Zibanejad. Rangers' success is going to be very important. Those 2 guys are going to really tell the tale. More so with Mika, I feel like, than Kreider. But that was big. And, really, Rangers were able to hold on from there. But as far as the lineup goes, there was a change on defense. And also, I should mention, let's say this first for forwards, Adam Edstrom. It's been announced he will be out 2.5 to 3.5 months. It's kind of a weird approximation. You don't normally see that. Normally, they'll just say, 2 to 3 months or 2 to 4, or to give the 2.5 to 3.5 very exact, which is appreciated. So, we're looking at about 3 months. So, he very well might miss the rest of the season. Now, if the Rangers make the playoffs, based on the timeline, definitely reason to believe he could be back. It's a lower body injury. I'm guessing it might have been maybe a foot injury. There was a play along the boards that he maybe was in a little bit of discomfort. It wasn't really one moment that you noticed it. It was more, hey, he's left the game and they had to go back and check replays to see what it may have been. So, wishing Adam Edstrom well, and I think that's a big loss. I really, really think that, to the 4th line, Edstrom, Carrick, and Rempe was very effective. So now Jimmy Vesey, who was out for a while, he played last game against Vegas, but now you know that he's going to be a fixture, likely in the 4th line. He's going to be in there. And I do think that while Vesey, you can do a lot worse than Vesey as an alternative option. I definitely do think that Adam Edstrom is someone that is more effective than Vesey overall at this point in their careers. So again, Edstrom, he's up against the clock. I hope that he makes his way back, but he could be out for the season. We'll see. On defense, Urho Vakanainen was out due to illness, and so therefore Zach Jones, who had not played since December 23rd, which is nuts. He was basically out he has not played in basically, a month and a half, you want to call it? And he stepped in there and did a really nice job. And it leads to an interesting conversation, one in which, you know, I'm not confident that they're going to really stick with Zach Jones, but what will we see? And Peter Laviolette was very complimentary towards Zach Jones after the game. And could that just be, you know, um, like him just trying to say the right thing to the media? But he was really, really, it was a little over the top to the point where maybe there's a chance that Zach Jones could play again on Friday. My hunch would tell me if Vakanainen is deemed healthy that they'll probably go back to him. But it is interesting. But of all people, and Ryan Lindgren's another discussion, right? Ryan Lindgren, he's not going to be a healthy scratch. That's just the way it is, right? Whether you want it to happen or not, it's not going to happen. It would take injury. With Vakanainen, if there was one person that could maybe be a healthy scratch where Zach Jones comes in, it would theoretically be him. That would be the one spot where it's like, okay, if Vakanainen struggled or something, but now that Zach Jones had what was a really, again, effective game, I hope that he gets an opportunity. Not that I don't dislike Vakanainen. I do think that he's a steady, solid third pair defenseman. But I think Zach Jones has gotten a raw deal. And again, like he didn't disappoint. He wasn't amazing. He really wasn't. But I thought he did the job considering that he hadn't been in there for a while. And he does add a little bit of a different element to that back end. So something to look at going into the Pittsburgh game Friday night. If Vakanainen's healthy, chances are it'll be him and Zach Jones will be out again, but we'll see. Maybe they'll change things up a bit. But so there's that. So let's discuss this Bruin Ranger game. Again, Boston coming off of the win against Minnesota the night before in Boston. And of course, the game before that, they beat the Rangers in a Saturday matinee game. Um, Jeremy Swayman got the start against the Rangers in Boston. He got the start against Minnesota. And so this was going to be Korpisalo, the former Columbus Blue Jacket goalie. He was in net for the Bruins. And as far as me thinking about his night, I don't know. I mean, a Boston fan would have a better opinion on that, but didn't think he was great. Didn't think he was bad is how I would, describe his night. But, you like the matchup. It's more than just goalies for sure, but Shesterkin versus Korpisalo is one that should, lean in the Rangers' direction, and it did. But the first period was pretty uneventful. Not a whole lot going on in it overall. The Rangers did take an early penalty, and it was Ryan Lindgren. At the 41-second mark, he trips Elias Lindholm, and it was, I guess if I'm going to be nice, I would say that Lindgren's game overall got better. I mean, it was, again, a rough start with that penalty, which he's been taking a lot of penalties lately and ones that have been costly. But Lindgren overall, I still think that he is a very key weak link considering his position and spot on the team. Right? It'd be one thing if Ryan Lindgren were more of a third pair defenseman that maybe got 15 minutes a night and killed some penalties, this and that. It'd be one thing, but it's a lot more than that. I mean, Ryan Lindgren is truly relied upon. Again, like he will be out there in late game scenarios. The Rangers are up by one. Ryan Lindgren is for sure to be out there, which is interesting. And because, like, for example, Keandre Miller, like he's been doing well lately. I thought Keandre had a pretty good night. And here's the thing too, I should mention, Keandre Miller, he played. Now, granted, Miller gets a little bit of power play time, but 25 minutes of ice time, and also Lindgren takes that penalty. So there's things you need to consider. Like Lindgren played 20 minutes, Miller 25 minutes, and the point there is that like Keandre, in that end of game scenario, they're still going to go with Lindgren over him. But look, it's interchangeable, right? Like if there's 2-3 minutes left, Lindgren may not necessarily eat up all of that time, but if it is like a do or die 1 minute to go, you're going to see Ryan Lindgren on the ice in those situations. But anyway, the Rangers do kill that off, the Lindgren penalty, that is, and it was a good kill. And the Rangers penalty kill in general in this game was very effective, and they end up getting that game-winning shorthanded goal as well. But like I said, this first period, thought the Rangers were the better team, but not a whole lot going on overall. Rangers outshot Boston 8-4 in the first period. The shot count was low on both sides. The Rangers outshot Boston 22-17 for the full total of the game. And the most shots that either team had was the Rangers with 8 in the first period and third period, just to give you, a reference of what this game was. which was certainly more of a grind and a defensive style game. So we go to the second period, and it's that top line that gets the goal, and it's Artemi Panarin with his 23rd goal of the season, assisted by Mika Zibanejad. And if there's one thing I'll say about JT Miller, because JT Miller really didn't factor much into this game. So JT Miller's point streak comes to an end. The new one and the old one with the Rangers, it's over. It was a 4-game point streak dating back to 2018. And a 2-game point streak where he had 4 points in these 2 games here since being reacquired. But Miller gets in on the forecheck, and he basically pressures Brandon Carlo into a turnover where Mika Zibanejad is the one that gets the puck and finds Panarin, who shoots right away, a nice slap shot, and he scores past Korpisalo. And those two were almost certainly teammates in Columbus. But Panarin gets that goal. JT Miller doesn't get an assist on it. Zibanejad does, not Miller. But, that's where that top line is really, really dangerous with the different skill sets and diversities that all three provide. It definitely is very, very difficult for the other team to go up against. I think that it hurts the Rangers in terms of their other lines. I think lines 2 and 3 are negatively affected by them kind of just putting their top guns on that first line, but it's been working for the most part, I would say. So that makes it 1-0 Rangers. Then now here's a couple of instances where the Rangers had a chance to make this easier. And we know the Rangers don't love to do that. At 7:36, Morgan Geekie trips Johnny Brodzinski. But the Rangers don't score on that power play. And this was one where this was out of the 3 power plays the Rangers had, this was the best one for the first unit. They at least had, some good offensive zone time, but were unable to score. The Bruins kill it off. At 11:01, Andrew Peeke high six Vincent Trocheck. This was one where the first unit was yanked pretty quickly. They didn't do a great job. And the second unit had some opportunities. Riley Smith had a good one on a pass from Brodzinski. And it's unfortunate for Will Cooley. He is not on that second unit. That second unit is comprised of Trocheck, Lafreniere, Riley Smith, Brodzinski, and Keandre Miller. So no Zach Jones, which isn't a huge surprise. I would have wanted it, but Keandre Miller he ends up really making a nice play, actually, in the tying goal. But yeah, this was one where they don't score again. And then not that far after that, Matt Rempe, even strength, ends up with a breakaway opportunity, tries to go backhand, but Korpisalo makes the stop. So between the missed power plays, the Rempe chance, Rangers had a lot of opportunities to make it a 2-0 game, but they don't. And unfortunately, it does come back to bite them as the Bruins score 2 goals in a 16-second span. Let's discuss the first one. David Pastrnak extends his point streak to 12 games. He scores his 28th goal of the season, assisted by Zacha and McAvoy. This was a play where Pastrnak takes a shot, a slap shot, and it goes off of Keandre Miller. And Miller is in enough pain to kind of move away from the play. And the puck goes right back to Pastrnak. He takes a fluttering shot that goes in. Borgen was in front, kind of a seeing eye shot that works. And it was unfortunate. I mean, Miller had to shake it off. And for that brief moment that he did, because he ended up being fine, it allowed Pastrnak to get another opportunity to which he would score. Now, the next goal, 16 seconds after, it's Elias Lindholm, his 10th goal of the season from Marchand and Zadorov. This one was, so for the previous goal, it was the Trocheck line that was on. This one was the JT Miller line. The puck ends up in the corner. It was out of the reach of Panarin, and it ends up going off of the stick first. Kind of a rough shift for Adam Fox, more being unlucky necessarily than bad, but it goes off of the stick of Fox. Marchand had the puck. Fox, I guess, kind of poke checks it, and it goes to Elias Lindholm. He has a little bit of room, but he's far out. Lindholm takes a shot, and it deflects off of Adam Fox's skate. And there's just enough movement there to put it past Shesterkin. Out of the 2 goals, that one would have maybe been easier to stop for Igor. But again, when you get those deflections, it's tough to blame the goalies. And that's what happens. So Pastrnak scores, Lindholm scores, makes it 2-1 Boston. And all of a sudden, you're not feeling so good about things as a Ranger fan. And then in 1912, to make matters worse, Vincent Trocheck interferes with Brad Marchand. However, I always like to say that in the penalties that happen with about a minute or so left in a period are a lot easier for the penalty kill, right? Breaking up that period, if you can stop that first half or so, whatever it might be, the first 40 seconds, the first minute and 20, whatever it may be, when it's broken up by a period, it just makes it much, much easier because coming out of that period kind of takes a little bit for the team to set up, get their bearings straight. So luckily the Rangers do kill off this penalty. So as we move forward in the third period, not a smart play by Brad Marchand. And as great as he is, sometimes he'll take some penalties that are a little bit unwarranted. And he's called for roughing Igor Shesterkin. You don't normally see a roughing penalty against a goalie. Normally it's called goalie interference. Will Cooley was near him. I thought this was the right call, definitely, to call Marchand for the penalty. However, you could make the argument, and Marchand was upset, that I think Cooley in the scrum rips off Marchand's helmet. And they didn't call anything. And those are tough to find. I mean, sometimes you're not going to see those things. So there was the chance they would even it up. Ultimately, though, the Rangers ended up on a power play. And the first unit, again, just isn't up. They don't get it done. And so then it's the second unit who had some good opportunities, a lot of them, and they do eventually cash in right after the power play ends. It's Vincent Trocheck scoring his 16th goal of the season from Keandre Miller and Johnny Brodzinski at 5:27 of the third. It tied up at 2. Again, very familiar feeling to when Zibanejad scored against Vegas to tie it up at 2. And this one was a really nice pass by Keandre Miller to find Vincent Trocheck, who just before that was battling in front with Korpisalo, and Korpisalo was frustrated. And then Trocheck finds some room. Again, a really nice pass by Miller where he had to get it through some sticks. But Trocheck was banging his stick, asking for the puck, and he gets it. And it's just an easy tip-in. It tied up at 2. So nice to see some production. Granted, it's Trocheck on it, who, it was a mainstay on power play 1. So he is a big part of that. But still, Johnny Brodzinski, he was, providing some, good minutes, if you will, on power play 2. So even though Will Cooley isn't on there, I think he should be. Hey, Brodzinski, for example, was showing why he should be on there. And for him, as much as I don't think he's a good third line center option, even though he's out for a while, he finds ways. He drew a penalty early in the game. He gets an assist there. He's getting things done as a pretty versatile player. So that ties it up at 2. Then at 10:02, Matt Rempe holds Pavel Zacha. And this was the right call. And look, I think that Matt Rempe did a lot of good things in this game. But here, I don't think you can argue it. He took his hand off the stick, took Zacha down, Bruin power play. But the Ranger penalty kill, which has been their most positively consistent thing all season long. Not only do they get the kill, but they take the lead and get the game-winning goal. Chris Kreider, his 16th goal of the season from Zibanejad and Fox. And as I always say, when it comes to Kreider and Zibanejad, the combination these days, they're most dangerous as far as scoring goals when they are shorthanded. And it was a play where Fox gets it to Zibanejad, and he's going in with a bit of speed into the Bruin zone, but he waits a little bit for Kreider to he was shot out of a cannon. I mean, he was going top speed. And Zibanejad, not a great pass, but it takes a fortunate bounce off of Charlie McAvoy. But really impressive for Kreider to corral the puck, get it on his stick, and in a really tough angle, find a way to lift it past Korpisalo. Again, a very impressive goal by Kreider. Despite the fact that I did not like the rest of his game, he's able to dial it in these big moments. And right there, he scores to give the Rangers a 3-2 lead. From there, again, I thought overall the Rangers had a very fine third period. There was that one really, tough moment, like I had mentioned before, where Mason Lohrei had that really good chance in front off of the weird bounce behind Igor. Igor made the save. Then with the goal, he pulled later with less than a minute left. Pastrnak goes for a wraparound goal, but Igor with a skate save. So Shesterkin he wasn't going to allow this to be tied, and that was really important. The Rangers get the 3-2 win. And for them to win in regulation against Boston, that's important. So they measure a little bit of revenge from the game a few days ago. Again, I mean, the Rangers did beat them on January 2nd. So I'm not going to make a huge deal about that. Rangers win the season series 2-1. And now they improved to 26, 23, and 4. And now Just 2 games left before the Four Nations tournament break. And it's going to be a back-to-back set, home against Pittsburgh and then at Columbus. Let's discuss these 2 games. Rangers might be catching a break in the fact that both teams are dealing with injuries. Now, in the case of Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby didn't practice today with what was called an upper body injury. I don't know, who knows? Crosby left the game briefly against the Devils, but did return. So it couldn't have been that bad, but Crosby does have a concussion history, if it is a concussion, right? I have no idea. But if he were to be out, an already struggling Penguin team would then become really a lot. I don't want to use the word easy because that's not what it is, but the Rangers beat the Penguins twice already this season. Pittsburgh is in the Eastern Conference, one of the lesser teams, no doubt. Rangers are at home. It's an extremely winnable game that becomes, even better. And I'm not rooting for this, but if Crosby is out. So we will see what the news is there. Whether he's in or out, though, that's with where the Rangers are, it's a game you got to get. Now, the next night, which is going to make it tough, back-to-back, it's at Columbus. Now, Columbus, they won't be in that same situation. Columbus will have a game home against Utah Thursday night. But then Rangers at Columbus is a Saturday night game. Rangers played them recently and beat them in a shootout, 1-0 game at Madison Square Garden. So this will be the first time they're playing in Columbus. And this one will be interesting, obviously, for the fact that these two teams are very close in the standings, but Columbus is very hurt right now. They've already been dealing with a lot of injuries. I mean, I'll name a few. I know Sean Monahan is out for a while and had been. Marchenko recently broke his jaw, so he's for sure out. And then Zach Werenski, I don't know the deal on Zach Werenski, but I know he missed the last game. So, if he is out as well, you're talking about some big, big names in that Columbus lineup out of the lineup. Not in. So, something to keep an eye on as we head into the weekend back-to-back set. But all I can say is that these last 2 games were not pretty, but I am very encouraged with the fact that the Rangers were able to get the comeback wins. This is a staple of what they are. The last 3-4 years, they have been one of the best teams where, hey, even if they were down late, going in the third, that never was a major problem. And for them to find ways to win these games is good. There's so much work to be done and a lot of season left. But if they can find a way, you want to take it a game at a time, but if they can find a way to have success against Pittsburgh and Columbus going into the break, you're going to be feeling good about it. Now, on the one hand, it's oh, damn, you don't want to stop the momentum, but I still think to bank those points and to find yourselves to be a little bit closer in the standings. But look, the fact of the matter is right now, the Rangers got to leapfrog, multiple teams. And right now, the way I look at it, because I kind of view Detroit as that number 8 team right now. Rangers are 5 points behind them with a game in hand. So it's close for sure, but you're not right there at the moment. You're on the outside looking in. So let's see what happens. I'll leave it with this. It'll be interesting to see with Shesterkin. Originally I felt as if, okay, they'll split it between Quick and Shesterkin. I don't know. I think with the break coming up, with the 2-week break and the importance of these games, the more I think about it, I think they might go with Igor with both. And I kind of felt like they would go, considering that Columbus was the team that was closer in the standings in the competition, that they would go with Quick against Pittsburgh at home and then go with Igor for the last game at Columbus. And if they do go split between the two, I'll stick with that prediction. But the more I think about it, I actually think that they may just go with Shesterkin. And that's no slight to Quick, right? I think, he just won his 400th game. He played really well in the game against Vegas. But I do think when you consider everything, now if Igor was playing in that Four Nations tournament, then my view might be different. But knowing that he's going to be out for a while anyway, and he has been playing a crazy amount before that, I think that if there was ever a time in a back-to-back situation to go with Igor on both, this would be it. Versus Pittsburgh and Columbus. So the Rangers pick up a very, very key victory against the Boston Bruins at Madison Square Garden. They find a way. They were down 2-1 going into the third, just as they were versus Vegas. And in this game as well, they win the game in regulation, this time by a score of 3-2.